Hello, everyone, and welcome to SCORE Fairfield County's live webinar on business planning, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. I'm Peter Talion, the webinar coordinator and a business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County, and I'll be your host for the next hour. Our speaker today is Dr. Harvey Hoffman. More on our speaker in just a minute. First, some brief information on SCORE. SCORE is an organization with about 240 chapters nationwide, comprising 11,000 volunteers. We are part of the Small Business Administration. In SCORE Fairfield County, we have over 100 volunteers with a wide range of industry, process, and subject matter expertise. We offer three primary value-added services to small business owners. Number one, we provide free one-on-one counseling via telephone, email, and video, which can be accessed via the Request Mentor link on our website or via the link on the screen. Note that we are not currently doing face-to-face mentoring until further notice. We also provide educational workshops and webinars, about 150 per year, similar to what you will have today. Number three, we have extensive resources on our website, including a network of subject matter experts at your disposal. We have converted many of our in-person workshops to live webinars, and there's a wide variety for you to choose from. And you can find those webinars at our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. Some information about today's event. If you have a question, please use the chat window or the Q&A function anytime during the presentation. It is located in the lower part of your screen. We will take Q&As during the last 10 minutes of our presentation today. Our webinar will end at 1 p.m. to respect your time. The session is being recorded, and the link to the recording will be available at fairfieldcounty.score.org within the next couple of days. Now our speaker. While in industry, Dr. Hoffman held positions ranging from research and development engineer, group manager, project manager, to general manager. In aerospace, he worked on the Space Shuttle and the Titan rocket. He holds a patent for the digital scan converter, employing an accelerated scan. He is the author of project management and capstone project books and more than 20 academic and technical papers. He's a professor that teaches business courses at Fairfield University. It's now my pleasure to turn over this seminar to Harvey. Harvey, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If anybody would like a copy of the presentation, I've left my email address, harveyfhoffman@yahoo.com. You can get it there and send me an email, and I'll be happy to respond. So we're going to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about the elements of a business plan. And we're going to talk about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, normally known as the SWOT plan. And based on the SWOT, we'll talk about a gap analysis. And by the end of this, you'll have a better understanding of a type of a business plan that you might want to use. So what is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is a person who takes on the risks associated with a business venture. That entrepreneur is a decision maker. That person should have analytical ability, good, maybe great interpersonal skills, high drive, and there are going to be a lot of risks involved. That person should also have a good idea. That's kind of fundamental. You need a little bit of money, maybe a lot of money, depending upon what your idea is. You'll need support from a whole variety of people. And because you're probably going to seek funding, you'll need a good personal credit history. Now, one of the things that is absolutely necessary is determination and the ability to make decisions. One of the things that an entrepreneur must do is juggle a bunch of tasks that you're going to be doing simultaneously. Organizing people, organizing money, organizing tasks. The ability to deal with stress. Goodness gracious, there is so much stress in running your own business. And as a consequence, you better have some self-confidence when you're doing this kind of thing. You need to know your product. You need to know the industry. You need to know the market. You need to know a little bit about the competition. What do you really understand the business that you're trying to go into? You've got to manage yourself. That's got to do with organization. Understand that supply chain. My goodness, in recent months, during this whole pandemic, we've heard about the supply chain. Well, what is the supply chain? You have to understand the supply chain associated with your business. And you need the ability to manage money. You need to know how to obtain financing and how to negotiate with your clients and customers, as well as your suppliers. Finally, you need strong support from your family, your friends, other professionals. All of these things are absolutely mandatory. So what is a business plan? We're going to be talking about the business plan now. You know, a business plan is absolutely necessary if you're going to seek funding. Absolutely necessary. However, it's also necessary just for you to focus, you to get your ideas down on a piece of paper. So everyone who decides to go into a business has to have it. The business plan is going to answer the questions who, what, why, where, when, and how. That's the newspaper people's questions, the fundamental questions. It's going to describe your business. It will convey your ideas, your vision to potential investors and lenders. What are your goals? That's got to go into your business plan. But also, as we will see, it's going to raise potential problems. What are the risks? Where do you have to get some strength, some additional support? And you're going to have a good understanding of the amount of capital you might need. So we're going to talk a little bit today about that business plan, how you might want to start it. And there's a whole host of ways of preparing a business plan. There is no one concept. I'm going to present one idea to you today, but there is no one approach to creating a business plan. However, while there is no one approach, every single business plan has a problem that you're trying to solve. Every single business plan should talk about the product or the service that you're going to offer. Describe it. Is there a need? What is the need? What's unique about you? What about the competition? We'll talk about the marketing plan that you might have. And HR, human resources. In today's world, where we hear so much about the difficulty people have in hiring good people, good support. And then finally, financial planning. All of these items go into the SWOT. The SWOT talks about, and you'll see that in a short while, your strengths, the weaknesses, the external opportunities there are, and the external threats that may exist. So in the first part, you're going to describe your product or service. What benefits will accrue to the clients or to your customers? What problem are you helping them solve? Now, this is really important, and I'll talk about this now for just a moment. I'm going to talk about the elevator pitch. You know, you're going into business, you know your business really thoroughly, and you can go on and on and on and talk about your business. Well, I'm going to ask you to define what your business is in the time it takes to go from the ground floor to the 20th floor in a building in New York City. That's called the elevator pitch. So roughly 30 to 60 seconds, a pitch to describe your business, who you are, what you do, what's your business all about. And you've got to be persuasive. And you want to move that pitch along. It's got to sound naturally, very natural, not robotic, and you can't talk too fast because otherwise the person won't be able to understand you. And clearly you can't ramble. So this is something that has to be practiced, that elevator pitch. That's right over here as part of defining your business. You have to clearly understand what legal risks there are. Do you have any liability potential? Understand that completely. So that's the first step in a business plan. And then, who needs the product or service that you're going to provide? What are you actually providing? Why do they need it? What benefits accrue to those people? Is what you're doing bigger, smaller, cheaper, better, smarter? Why do they need it? Why would it help them in their life? Is this a stepping stone to something better? To help them reduce costs, increase revenue? To help the prospective purchaser of this service or product improve their own service? Think about this. If the person buys your product or service, do they have to change the way they are doing business? Are there any process or procedures changes required by them in the activities that they're involved in? And make sure you understand what problem are you solving. You know, if you go into business, you better have something unique. You're helping a person solve a problem. Well, why is what you're doing or suggesting better? How do you deliver the solution that you're suggesting? What is your secret sauce? Why can't somebody else do the same thing? Do you have a wide moat? Now, what I mean by a wide moat is, hey, you have a competitive advantage over other people. Maybe there are certain barriers to entry that you have. Perhaps you have a patent on something that another person doesn't have. If they come into your area, if you're providing a product or a service, is it something that will make it very difficult for them to switch to another product or service. That's actually good. You have a unique technology. So what is really special about your product or service? Think about that. You know, Michael Porter is a business writer. He's a Harvard University professor, and he's written a great deal about business. And one of the things he has said is, if all you're trying to do is essentially the same thing as your rivals, then it's unlikely that you'll be very successful. So that's why I said a moment ago, your product has to be different. It has to be special, and people will want to buy it because it will help them in some fashion, in some way. When you go into your business, hey, who are your competitors? Who are your competitors? How many? Where are you going to be located? Are you going to be located in an area that will make you different, special? What are your differences? Do you have a competitive advantage, whether it be in price, technology? We talked about the patent, a location. Are you providing better customer service? Why will your clients or your customers pick you over the other alternatives? So you have to understand what those other alternatives are. Who or what is your competition? Now we're getting into a marketing plan. You got to market your product or your service. Who are your target clients? How big is that market? You know, if you have a very, very tiny market, then, hey, that's going to be difficult to get into. And you may not attract investors. Where are you going to be located? Where is your market located? What about the future? Are you going into a growing area or something that's shrinking? What are the demands? What are the trends in the industry today associated with your product? Okay. Do you understand your competition? Do you understand the strengths and weaknesses of your competition? And then how are you going to market? Are you going to do it on the internet? Who your partners will be? So you really also have to understand your client's profile. What type of person are you going to try to sell? And make sure you offer something that is better than your competition. How are you going to get them to switch to what you offer? How will your customers, your prospective customers, know about your service or product? How are you going to generate leads? How are you going to contact the customers? So these are questions you really want to answer. How are you going to get people in today's world? My goodness, you know, we've got a difficult employment environment today. Difficult to hire people. So what's your plan? How are you going to get the appropriate people? How are you going to get management types as well as workers? Are you going to do any subcontracting? In all likelihood, you will use outside professionals like bookkeepers and lawyers and accountants. You're not going to have them on staff. Just understand that you're going to have it. And who will these people be? I'm going into an area now that is really terribly, terribly important. Key performance indicators. What are they? What are the key performance indicators in your business? And you should know this cold. You should never ever talk to a prospective investor or lender without knowing how quickly is your startup gonna spend money? What does it cost to acquire a new client or a new customer? You know how to calculate your profit margin. What about your revenue growth? What are you anticipating? How much revenue per client or customer do you expect to earn? What about your retention rate? What do you anticipate? And how will you measure in today's world your customer satisfaction? These things, these KPIs, the key performance indicators, you should have an understanding of these key performance indicators before you talk to any investor or lender. As far as your financial planning is concerned, you have to have a forecast, roughly 2 years. Hey, what you have a balance sheet, what do you anticipate your income will be over these 2 years? What about your cash flow? Do you have a budget? All of this has to be written down. You know, every investor or lender is interested in when will you be profitable? When will you break even? And when will the investor or lender get the money back plus make a profit? What, in a very succinct fashion, what will you do with the money that you receive from an investor or a lender? It's a very fundamental question is, while you're growing, while you're starting up, how will you live? How will you eat? Where will you live? At some point, you hope to become profitable, but in the meanwhile, how will you live? So I'm going to go on now to the SWOT plan. The SWOT plan is really a tremendous help to prepare the business plan that I just described. The SWOT, you need to understand what your strengths are, what makes you different, what are your weaknesses, and you have to be honest. It's really extraordinarily difficult to be honest with yourself, much less anyone else. But where are your weaknesses? What are the opportunities? What are the outside, the external opportunities that you see? And then what are the threats? What could hurt your business? What could harm your business or startup? You really need to understand everything I just described in terms of the SWOT, because it will help you understand yourself. It will give you insight into where your business should focus. And I'm going to show you how the gap analysis in a few minutes will help you in that area. This will help you understand your industry. And also it will enable you to focus and take a look at what advertising and what marketing is necessary to give you that competitive advantage. What are the threats? So a SWOT analysis might look something like this. In this box right over here, we have our strengths. We have our strengths, and this is within the organization, within your company, what are your weaknesses within your company? Outside, what are the external opportunities? And then what are the threats that would harm your business? I'm going to show you a set of questions to ask yourself, and this is fairly extensive now. So this is going to look like an eye chart, but you really have to answer all of these questions as part of the SWOT environment. What are your strengths? So what do you do well? What does your company do that's unique? Does your organization have some specialized knowledge? Do you have experience to start? Answer truthfully. What do you do better than your competition? If there is no difference, why do you want to start a business? Do you need any credentials or special licenses? Do you have financial reserves? Hopefully, this is part of your strength, that you have the licenses, you have reserves to get you through the first year of business. Hopefully, you see a high product demand or a service demand that the community of customers or clients needs. Are you able to train your employees? Will you have a sales staff, or will you be able to train a staff so that they have a strong understanding of your product or service? You're going to have to develop relationships with your customers. You're going to need good internal communications. And in today's world, you need a good website and then good marketing platforms, perhaps on some of these well-known areas, the platforms like Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. And if you don't have expertise in these areas, you have to hire somebody to help you develop this, because without these in today's world, it's really difficult. If you're going to be on the street in a location, do you have a high traffic area? Do you have a good marketing strategy? And that goes back to the website and the marketing platforms. You're going to develop a brand reputation. Hopefully that's going to be strong. Do you really have these things? Do you have patents? Perhaps you have patents that differentiate you, and you have the license and permits. But in the same way now, we jump over to the other column. What are your weaknesses? And this is so difficult to acknowledge. You better do it. You better hide in a dark room and think, and what areas do you need to improve in? What resources do you lack? What parts of your business are not very profitable, and how would you change it? Do you need further education? Do you need further experience? How would you get it? What costs you time or money? You have to diversify in today's world. Are you struggling to meet deadlines? You have too much work. Have high rental costs or high advertising costs? What do you do about it? Is your market research up to date? Are you still advertising in newspapers? When nobody reads newspapers, people read Facebook. Do you have cash flow problems? Or you have declining sales? Why? Do you have too much stock in the back of your facility? Do you have adequate record keeping? Is your brand name recognized? Are there good, solid differences between you and your competitors? You have to do more community outreach. How about customer satisfaction? Do we have it? Are we measuring it? And this is nasty, but do we have any pending litigation against our company? In which case, how are you going to handle that? So this represents your strengths and weaknesses within the organization. But now I'm going to take a look at the outside, the external opportunities and threats. So on the outside, the external world, are we meeting our company customers' needs? Are there new customers' needs that we should think about? Where is the industry going? Is it seasonal? Do we have emerging trends or emerging markets? How can you do more for your existing clients? These are opportunities. Can you use technology to enhance your business? What about the target audiences? Have the potential to reach new audiences? Do you have, would it be helpful to bring in related products and services that your customers or clients could use? Can you create partnerships with other businesses? What about opportunities for growth in underrepresented geographic markets? Are there opportunities in new locations? Is there a niche market that you could take advantage of? You know, and then there are constant market changes, but one of the things that happens that are both opportunities and threats are federal, state, and local laws and regulations. Both. Some laws will help you, others will hurt you. So we should be on top. One of the big laws just coming out in Connecticut for those small businesses is cyber. You know that if you're not using cyber to help protect your customers' and clients' information, you're at risk. Whereas if you're using a cyber security, then in Connecticut, customers and clients can't sue you. So one has to be up to speed with federal, state, and local laws and regulations. With respect to threats, what obstacles are you facing? What are the strengths of your biggest competitors? How can you mitigate that? What are your competitors doing that you're not? How about the economy? What's happening in the economy? How can you take advantage? Is the economy hurting you? Are we going into a recession or not? Are there changing demographics? You can bet there are changing demographics. Is it helping you or hurting you? How about the whole industry? Is the industry changing? Is it a strength or a weakness? Okay. Is the fact that you lack a patent or something that's proprietary hurting your business? The fact that you have competitors that offer similar products and you're not differentiating yourself from them. Are your competitors offering new advertising? How about a shift in the market, in the market expectations, market requirements? Right now, we've gone through a very, very good time in the real estate industry because inflation is going up and mortgage rates are increasing, does that mean that there's going to be a downturn in the housing economy? And if there's a downturn in the housing economy, how will that affect your business? Does weather conditions impact you? Does climate change impact you at all? You need to outsource some stuff. And if you do it, are you losing control of your product quality? Okay. Are you losing old customers? Why? Is your technology up to speed? So these are threats to your business that you have to sit down and think about. It's not a 2-minute activity. You have to go through all of this and really understand this. And I can give you a couple of examples. Here's a computer store. A computer store has some strengths. Their competitors are pushing boxes, but they know systems and they can set up systems with the customer. They have they get to know their customers, and here, this computer store, they've been in the town forever. They have loyal customers, and they're pushing systems and help people set up computer systems in their home. Weakness, well, cost. A small computer store in a town, hey, they don't have the price, the low price, and they don't have the volume that a big box store has. And they don't have the brand power that a big store has. Are there opportunities? Well, perhaps training. Major stores don't provide training, but maybe your place can provide training. And you can provide increased service. The threat, well, the larger price store, the price-oriented store, the big box store, they can go low in price. Costco can go low in price, but their telephone service is not particularly great. So can you offer a better service than they? Unfortunately, today, computers, and for the computer store that we're talking about, it's an appliance. It's just, people just look about it as a product in a box and they set it up. So that's a threat to this computer store. Starbucks, big company, largest coffee company in the world. Weakness, I don't know, maybe they've had some bad publicity in the past. They're expensive. My goodness, are they expensive? And of course, coffee beans fluctuate in price. That's a weakness that they might have. Threats, well, like I said, the external coffee bean prices, people can infringe on their trademark. People can sell other coffee at a lower price. So that's a problem, that's a threat for a company like a Starbucks. But the opportunities, well, market expansion, not only locally in the United States, but all over the world. And they can increase in that way. A company like Domino's, well, they can do a SWOT analysis. They have their strengths. You know, one of the things that's a weakness in both Domino's and PepsiCo is the fact that we're now in a health environment. And so threats to SWOT, to Domino's is in the area of healthier lifestyles. And that's the same threat that a company like PepsiCo has. Healthy lifestyles is a threat. So they have to go ahead and maybe consider alternate approaches. So now you have some understanding of SWOT, the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and threats. What do you do with this? Well, what you do with it is you perform a gap analysis. Gap analysis asks the question, Where are you now? Where do you want to go? And what do you have to do to go from where you are now to where you want to go? That's called the gap analysis. And you use the SWOT to help you, your strengths, weaknesses. You know where your weaknesses are. Where do you want to make it a strength? You know the threats. What do you do to overcome, to mitigate the threats? And so that's where you're going to go ahead and create. You're going to maybe identify areas for diversifying, develop a social media strategy, get more people. Maybe you need to train people better. Perhaps you need additional equipment or machines. Goodness gracious, these are all areas that might come out of gap analysis after you've completed the SWOT analysis. Now, it's fundamental in the business world to understand that you've got to come up with KPIs, key performance indicators, and you have to measure. You have to track where you've been and where you're going. How do you know you're improving? You've got to track your employees. You track your customer satisfaction. Track what the competition is doing. You've got to develop methods to collect and organize data. Track your income versus what your expectations are. So all of this is really crucial. You've got to measure it, and then you can manage it. So the SWOT is that help. The SWOT is going to help you. The SWOT is going to tell you, hey, what do I have to change? And from the SWOT, you'll develop key performance indicators. You're going to become stronger by focusing on your strengths, overcome your weaknesses, and understand what the external threats are and what you do about it. What you do to overcome those external threats. And those threats can come from anywhere. But that app plan that I just described will help, goes into your business plan to help us understand things a little bit better. Now, understand something just about investors and lenders. Entrepreneurs are intuitive people. Entrepreneurs rely on their experience, their industry knowledge, just plain gut feelings to tell them when a project makes sense. An investor is a little different. An investor is very methodical, and they want the facts. They want the facts. So if they find any misleading statements while they're studying your business plan, they're going to be turned off. So they may not have the technical knowledge that you may have, but they're going to want to make sure you have thoroughly understood the business. They don't have to, but they expect you to thoroughly understand your business. So you need a well thought out business plan. Now, in one of these last slides that I have over here, this is a summary kind of what we've talked about as far as a business plan is concerned. This chart answers the questions: what, why, where, when, and how. What are you selling? What are you selling? What's your product or service? What's the need? How do you know? What makes you different? Who's your competition? Who's your target market? How do you know who your target market is? What resources do you need? What's your marketing plan? How are you going to sell? Are you going to sell through a store, through internet? How? What are your KPIs? Do you need a social networking approach? Instagram, Facebook, all those things. How are you going to distribute your product or service? Where is it to be located? What are your expenses, and how do you know you have a plan for a 2-year plan or so? When will you be breaking even? When will you make money? What will your legal structure be? Probably an LLC. Oops. Do you need insurance? Liability or malpractice insurance? Do you need any certifications or permits? Where are you growing? Is this field that you're in growing? Are there any federal, state, or legal issues? Do you have any intellectual property that makes you different? Do you need any professional approvals? So this chart kind of summarizes everything we've talked about in the past 45 minutes or so. So on that note, I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
Thank you very, very much, Harvey. The way we're going to do questions is through the chat feature or the Q&A feature, which is at the bottom of your screen. So if you have questions based on what Harvey has talked about, send them and I will moderate the question and answer period. We have a couple of questions that we'll start off with, Harvey, and we'll add some as well. The first question we have from one of our listeners: how much cash do you need to start a business?
Oh, goodness gracious. That's an impossible question to answer, really. I would love to be able to answer that, but you have to know a little bit about your business. Is it going to be a business that's going to have a lot of stock that you have to sell? Where is it going to be located? Is it going to be out of your home? Is it going to be at a store? You know, you have to know a lot about the business before you go ahead and consider that kind of a question. The answer is, I don't know.
Okay, we appreciate the honesty of that answer. Let me go to the next question we have. In your experience, what are the top 2 or 3 mistakes that new businesses make, and how do you recommend avoiding them?
Planning. That's the first, number 1 issue. Do you have a plan? And do you have a plan to live while you are exercising the initial plan, your new business? You have a startup, and you have to recognize that a startup is not going to make any money probably for the first year. How are you going to live? So you got to have enough resources to take you through that first year. So that's what I would really recommend, is understanding the plan, creating the plan that will help you understand what you're trying to do, and then having enough resources to support you through the first year or so of operation.
Very good. Thank you. Our next question comes, and the question is as follows: is it good to start a business in this economy?
It's good to start a business whenever you have a really interesting idea. When you have a good idea and you know what you're doing, and there's a demand for that product or service. And then you start slowly. You know, not every business has to be started full time. A lot of people begin small businesses and operate in the evening out of their home and then expand. So put your toe in the market, in the field, put your toe in the water, see how it feels, see what's happening, and then make some decisions later down the pike. But there's always an opportunity. Is it difficult to collect money at this time? It's always difficult to get money to support a business, but you have to show that there's a real opportunity. And then if you can show that there's a real opportunity, investors will come.
Thank you. But our next question comes on the break-even period that you talked about in your presentation. Is the break-even period 2 or is it 5 years in planning a business? What's the break-even period that people should think about?
I would suggest it's less than a year. You don't want to go 2 or 5 years without an income. So you really want to suffer for a year or so, and then hopefully come out at the end of a year, year and a half, and you're making significant money. You don't want to go much more than a year and a half or so without income to support you. Now, most people can't do that.
About a year and a year and a half.
Yeah.
Our next question talks about the model that you talked to us about today, the SWOT model. Can you apply this in a nonprofit world as well, or is it just for profit making?
Oh, no, it has nothing. It can be applied to an individual. I tell some of my students to go into a room and hide. Get away from the dog, get away from everybody, and just think about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for their personal life. So this is completely applicable to the profit venture, the profit organization, or the nonprofit. You know, there's no such thing as a nonprofit. And profit is not a four-letter word. A nonprofit still has to turn on the lights. They still want heat. They still want water. They still need a space to work in. They have to make a significant income in order to exist. Now, how they get money may be a different story, but there really is no such thing as a nonprofit. So yes, everything I've said today is applicable to both profit-making and so-called nonprofit organizations.
Okay, our next question is, from your experience, how important is a strong social media knowledge to starting a business? How important is social media to starting a business?
I think in today's world, it's very, very important. And if you don't know how to do it, you're going to have to spend money to get people to help you, whether it's a web page or an Instagram, Facebook, updating your Facebook all the time, or updating your Instagram or Twitter feed. You're going to need help to do that. I think the people who are perhaps 50, 60 and over, it's not so important. But for a person who's to youngsters today, I think having social media is critical.
Okay. Our next question is buying a franchise a good idea for somebody looking to open a business?
It depends on the franchise. It's purely simple, a question of dollars and cents. Take a look at the franchise. How much are they going to be taking of your money? How much help will you really be getting from them? You have to analyze that in a very, very critical way. So that's not a simple question to, you can say, yes, it's great. It's no, it depends.
Okay. And then we've got one last question. In terms of, there's a lot of material they say that you've presented today. What are the first 3 steps? If somebody wants to get started, what are the first 3 steps they should take to start a new business?
Well, the plan. The first step is the plan. The second step is the plan. The third step is the plan. Come up, take a look at the plan that I presented earlier today, and go through all of that information, develop the plan, spend a lot of time on developing the plan. Who's your customer? What are you saying? What are you doing? What makes you different? You have to go through that whole plan, look at your finances, there is no single step that's more important than developing a plan, because the plan will crystallize and focus you. It will help you understand, is this a reasonable opportunity, or is this just a pipe dream? So you really have to pull together that plan. And then if you have a solid plan, you could then sit down with a venture capitalist or a lender and talk about how you're going to finance this plan. But without a solid plan, you're not going to get all that far. And this is my opinion, of course.
Thank you. One of our listeners asked, how do they receive a copy of your slides? Would you mind just repeating how our
Sure.
listeners can get a copy of your slides?
My email address is Harvey, Harvey, F as in Fred, Hoffman, Hoffman, Harvey F. Hoffman, all one word, at yahoo.com. Send me an email and I will send you a PDF version of this.
So once again, to our listeners, Harvey, Harvey, F as in Frank, Hoffman, Hoffman, all one word, Harvey F. Hoffman at yahoo.com. If you
Yes.
send Harvey a email, he'll be happy to send you the slides. Well, thank you very much, Harvey. As a reminder, a recording of this webinar and the materials will be available within a couple of days on the fairfield.score.org website, fairfieldcounty.score.org website. Please check our website for upcoming webinars. There are many that come up and are very, very helpful. Again, SCORE offers free individual counseling, so please use the link on the screen or visit our website and click Request a Mentor. We are available for sessions via phone, email, or video. And finally, if you could fill out your evaluations that will be sent at the end of this webinar, it allows the SCORE team to continue to improve what it is that we present to our audiences. So very, very great thanks to you, Harvey, and to all the folks that participated on the call. And that will end our webinar. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.